NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is the three amigos, and welcome to George, to Steve, and to Mitch. The perfect way to kickstart your pre-season weekend. As always, plenty to talk about, despite Newcastle not having a game this weekend. Lots going on behind the scenes, and I think the first thing we should talk about is the new set-piece coach, George, has come in. Newcastle have confirmed the arrival of new set-piece coach, Martin Mark. Very little about him out there, other than he's from the Danish top division, that he's come in to aid Newcastle with set-pieces. We did have one last year, but this 31-year-old has come from the Superliga, and he's just had a title success out there in his native Denmark. 31-year-old, and the latest arrival for backroom staff. Set-piece coach addition, then not another player. What's your thoughts on that, George? Did we need one?
Well, on the evidence of the last couple of seasons, yes. We only had one option, didn't we? Trippier at times when he was on the pitch. And yet on the pitch, we'll have Sandro Tonali, who takes all the dead ball pieces for Italy, and yet can't take one for us. So there's been a disconnect of some sort for me, anyway. And it's an important feature of the game now. You know, you get it right, and it can earn points. There's no question about that. So if this guy's comes. Now, one presumes that they've been able to watch lots of video and so on and games and that he's been influencing, and that's how they've come to this selection. But I think it is necessary. It's such an important arm of the game now that we once or twice when we did do things differently, it rewarded we with goals and points, but some of the time, occasionally we struggled to miss the first man when it was a corner and things like that. So if it'll rid us of that sort of thing, then that's exactly what we need. But who takes them is probably the first thing to work out, I would have thought, but I could be wrong. So I look forward to what he produces. It sounds. I mean, I do absolutely nothing about the guy, like you said, Steve. But what's important to me is that they've actually made the decision to go down that line, and then when we see what's happening on the pitch, we know who to blame.
Do we need a throw-in coach, says Mick?
Yes, I mean, doesn't every team in the country He doesn't the England team, doesn't England ladies team. I mean, the ladies European Championships drive me dotty. It really is. It's clear the referees and the assistant referees have given up on things as trivial as throw-ins, and it's ridiculous. I suppose I'm speaking from a point of view where, in my day, particularly at St James's Park, where it was an important part of a coaching who actually spent a lot of time. And Charlie Mitten was the manager, and he insisted that whether it be the first team or the fifth team, way down in the Newcastle District League, that we all used the same system of throw-ins. And if you heard that they hadn't, you can guarantee you would turn up and have something to say. So I'm tired of watching us, particularly. It's got better, but not very much, where we get our throw-in midway between the halfway line and our byline. And 2 seconds after we've taken our throw-in, the opposition's having a shot on our goal. That's just absolutely crackers. Absolutely balmy. So sorry to go on, but you invited us to chat about throw-ins. I do think it's important.
You mentioned them so many times during the season, it was only right that somebody asked you that question. So,
well, it is, and poor Steve gets it in the ears every match we're at. In fact, it's now interesting that in the group around one by 1892, I'm not the only one shouting foul throw now, am I, Steve? There's about five or six people, including a couple of women, shouting foul throw. So. But
to be honest, Steve's probably hoping that Adidas bring out some ice hockey Newcastle United gear so that he's protected from you punching him every time there's a foul throw.
That's true.
Maybe.
Okay, Steve, we've got a new guy in town, a new set piece coach. Refreshing behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. There's been a lot of work gone on to find the right person. I mean, it's quite a technical thing, isn't it? We saw at the beginning of the season, beginning of last season, Arsenal making a big play on set pieces, and that seemed to carry on all the way through till about January. And then all of a sudden, the poor guy, when the set pieces weren't coming off, when people had sussed them out, he started getting slagged off himself on Match of the Day and on Sky Sports, as things started to unravel. And I suppose that's just the nature of the game. But it's an important facet of the game now. I read somewhere that he had his previous club where he's come from that scored 27 goals out of 60 that came from set pieces. Now, I don't know whether that's excellent coaching or just shocking defending, quite frankly, and poor organisation in the Dutch league, the Danish league. But we'll never find out, and it doesn't really matter either. It's just a passing comment. But yeah, it's an important area, and it's these marginal gains that you get, isn't it, from having coaches and players who are disciplined and understand every aspect of the game. And I suppose you could look at it as the next part of the evolution of Eddie Howe and his coach. And we've talked earlier in the week, last couple of weeks, Mitch has mentioned about the way that Eddie's meticulous in his preparation, etc. And I think this possibly, I'm sure Mitch will agree, just another little cog, another little advantage that he's looking for, another little marginal gain that we can go for. I think George is right. However, it's important that when you're working on these, that you've got the right sort of delivery, that you've got the right players delivering these free kicks or working on these little set pieces together. Because in the past we have been very much a hit and hope team, I think, at times. But last season, I think didn't we score quite a few interesting little moves from free kicks? I think Jason Tyndall was being given that task, but Jason Tyndall seemed to have many tasks, as well as being the sort of reincarnation of Terry McDermott at times. So let's just see how it goes. But I think probably in the European football as well, something that we possibly learned from from our last excursion into the Champions League, and having watched Champions League games last season, set pieces are an important area. You know, if you're going to get up to that area of the field, you've got to take advantage when you can.
How is your arm, Steve?
My arm's not too bad, actually. I've had it's the close season, so it's getting plenty of rest.
You set piece coach, Mitch. What's your thoughts?
Again, as the game sort of evolves, we're seeing ultra specialisation in certain areas, and you want to gain every percentage advantage from every particular opportunity you can. And set pieces is one area where I think everybody should strive to be better. You're seeing it's not just about what we do, it's about what we're going to face. You're seeing now it's not just man-to-man marking, you get zonal marking, you get a combination of zone land-man, and understanding how to break down those different schemes more effectively, I think, is becoming an art. Then on the other side of it, you look at what Arsenal have been doing this season, last season, with dummy runs, blocking runs, people coming in late, people going to different positions and taking up different positions, so options are there for delivery. You've got a front post and a back post option coming in. And this is one of the absolutely few times you get in football where you can work a set move. It's what makes football a difficult game to predict by stats only, because it's so dynamic. It's not like American football. It's not like baseball where everything starts from a set play every play. It's the set plays come along only now and then. And so if you can gain an advantage for them, I'm all for it. And we saw what happened when you gain a positive advantage, because what you in the Carabao Cup final, what you're looking for in any situation like that is a mismatch. You want the shortest player on the pitch, Mark and Dan Burn. That's the kind of thing you're trying to create, or you want to try and create a little bit of havoc in the box. The keepers these days seem to want to punch and palm and not necessarily catch. I don't understand that, to me, but it seems to be the way they want to do it. Everybody seems to be blaming the modern ball and it moves too much, etc., etc. So again, you want to be creating schemes and systems that can wreak a bit of havoc and create these mismatches, which we're desperate to get to give you those advantages. Because if you can take them, it sets you up in a game very nicely.
Yeah, lots of people got lots of opinions. The specialist set piece coach can only make us better, so it's a good thing in my opinion. He seems a decent coach. Last season, 27 of the club's 60 league goals came from set pieces, and incredible numbers from Martin Mark in terms of goals from set pieces as a proportion of goals, says Benny. So a lot of people have been doing their homework on him, which is good. Okay, yeah, look, it's a positive, and it's somebody else to come in, and hopefully Eddie Howe will see the same in them, and look forward to working with them. We all know what the appointment of Bunce did. That's proved to be a beneficial one for Newcastle United as far as injuries are concerned. John Askew, as always, has a hat full of questions. We'll go with this one. He says, bearing in mind Eddie's coaching skills and the size of his backroom team, are you surprised we've needed to recruit a set-piece coach? Or do you think it's the way things are these days? And I mean, it's continuation of the subject, but you know, I don't think we are surprised, George, listening to what you guys are saying, because it is a progression. People do move on in football. Other people go on to do different things. Sometimes you go stale as well. I would say, you know, using the same people.
And there's so much happening now around a team at the highest level. And as Neil hinted, you know, or somebody hinted that Jason Tindall's been doing everything. That's one more job that he doesn't even have to think about now. He can pass it on, and he can have a view, but it's not down to him, or it's not down to Jones or whoever was contributing to that. So no, I think I'm not surprised that we've appointed someone. In fact, I'm delighted we've appointed someone, because as I say, when I've watched what we've done over the last 2 or 3 years, well, since Eddie come. In some ways, it was always Trippier, and not always very good Trippier. Sometimes ball in the back of the net, but sometimes hit the first man. Sometimes not hit anybody, just drift aimlessly out for a goal kick and that sort of thing. There were last year 1 or 2 occasions when we did try some different things, particularly on the right with Murphy and Tonali, that did cause havoc. Now, if that was Tyndall or whoever, it made a difference, in my opinion. So, if we've got somebody that concentrates on that and does so on a regular basis, then that's all to the good for me. And who knows if he's? I mean, it seems like he's not just somebody who takes free kick. He's obviously a football man. It may be he could get involved in other things with his experience. So, but I'm delighted that they've taken that opportunity. Any mortal thing we can give to our players to give them an advantage on the pitch has got to be a good thing, and that's what I see about this. This is an attempt to give our players an advantage against all opposition, not just the odd ones, but all opposition, who will then immediately have to think, oh, free kick, what they're going to do this time. Oh, corner, what they're going to do this time. That seed of doubt can only be beneficial to our team and to our players. So I'm not surprised, and I'm delighted.
Sometimes it's just a refresh, Steve, isn't it? I'm just reiterating what we said earlier, but it's sometimes just a refresh and it can benefit, and sometimes it's just a change of ideas.
That's right. Change of ideas, change of emphasis, options. You know, there's nothing better than having options at set pieces, at free kicks, at corners, or whatever that happen to be. Because what it does is it puts the opponents on the back foot. They're not too sure what you're going to do. You know, they'll have done their homework to a greater or lesser extent on this coming season, on the way Newcastle performed last season in terms of set pieces. But now they're going to have to start to think a little bit further, and they're going to, you know, it's going to be something that'll get into their head, into the opponent's head. And all of these are just your 1%ers. These are the marginal gains that people talk about. Any advantage you can get over your opponent, anything you can do to upset your opponent, to cause doubt in your opponent's mind. And if we come good in the first few games with a few goals from set pieces, everybody's going to be talking about it. Yes, it's going to put the guy under pressure, but it's going to also you know, add to the mystique and make people start to analyze us a little bit deeper, concentrate on other aspects of our game, and maybe sometimes forget about Alexander Isak and the ball over the top and him running through and slotting it in, you know. So there's all of these little things that come. And it's fascinating. And is it a power play by Eddie? Is it you know, should we just put up there, you know, Eddie being supported and Eddie being granted what he wanted, everybody making an assumption that it's an Eddie appointment, it's something that he wanted to do. I'm sure Eddie and the rest of his backroom staff will have looked at it and said, this is an area that we can get better on. This is an area that we need support for, because there's lots of other things going on. I think, you know, we might find sometimes that some of his coaches might be spending their time on you know, over a weekend watching what's going on with their Champions League opponents and this type of thing, and analysing and preparing for the following game, because it's going to be a very, very difficult and busy season. So all of these little things are just aids to and fresh ideas for the backroom team to work on and to get their heads around, and to instill maybe perhaps a little bit more confidence in the squad, that everything that the squad's looking for, every ounce of assistance that the squad needs, is being catered for.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coaching staff, Mitch, I mean, we don't know for certain, but you'd imagine that the kind of area that Eddie does have a bit of a say in, because it's people who he's got to work with, you know, and, you know, imagine he says, I want a goalkeeping coach, or I want this, or I want that, and then he gets thrown
You'd
somebody.
imagine he does.
Yeah, you'd imagine
that's the case, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So, and I think in relation to the question, it is just the way that things are done now. You're going to see an ultra specialisation of coaching. Again, the way that you have in American football. You've got coaches to specific groups of players in specific positions because the skill sets sometimes don't cross over. Or there's something specific in that position that you have to be aware of. And again, that allows you to create an edge or a difference. That allows you to open mismatches, because that's what you always want. That's where games get broken down. And so if you've got somebody who's coming in with that kind of track record, if that's actually the case from his team, you've got to suggest he's doing something right, and he's probably doing something different that other people haven't caught up on yet. So, look, I'm all for it. We saw the gulf between Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall when Eddie was ill. For me. And so I think the more help that's around Eddie and around the entire coaching squad, the better.
Yeah.
Did I was that correct, Mitch? You're talking about, you used the analogy of American football. I saw a little bit of film a couple of weeks ago of an American football team coach. I think it was the 49ers, where they actually have a coach, well, a backroom member of staff, put it that way, whose job is when the coach is running up and down the touchline to grab a hold of him to make sure he doesn't bump into people. I don't know whether you've seen that, but that's the sort of way that they go, isn't it? They cover every eventuality.
Some of those water boys are tasked with doing all sorts like that, because the NFL have come down hard about coaches encroaching on the field of play as well and things like that. Right. And so they're making sure that they don't do it by accident.
Yeah, I think he was getting followed and grabbed a hold and dragged back as he was going to encroach into an area that he wasn't supposed to be. Fascinating.
Okay, we're going to move on topics. Everyone asking about the top. Yeah, it's the goalkeeper top. I went up to the club today because I wanted to get a couple of new pairs of tracksuit bottoms and ended up spending a fortune again. So ridiculous. I ended up buying more stuff than I should have bought. Promised myself I wasn't going to buy this, that, and the other. Ended up buying it anyway. So yeah, but this is the nightmare with Adidas. I threw into the mix that I went to the Oasis pop-up shop in Carnaby Street this week and ended up buying a couple of things there. Like I'm well over budget for clothes this month, believe you me. In fact, this year. That's what I would probably say. Yeah, we did get a defensive coach under Keegan, caretaker. It was Mark Lawrenson. Yeah, that was hilarious. That when you hear Dennis tell the story about that. Stephen Howe
in the strawberry, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Doing absolutely nothing. Crystal Palace demoted to the Conference League due to John Textor having shares in both Palace and Lyon. Rewind a year, Man United allowed to compete despite Ratcliffe having shares in Man United and Nice. What's your thoughts on this, Mitch? I'm going to go to you first on this occasion. Yeah, it's an interesting story breaking this week.
Let's go another step further. Man City allowed to compete in the Champions League alongside City Group Club Girona. Chelsea allowed to compete in the same Euro competition as Blue Coat owned Strasbourg. So there's plenty of examples of where it's been allowed to happen. This is yet another situation where, for all to be honest with you, it couldn't happen to a nicer person than Steve Parish, and I'm very much at the very thin end of my sympathy for Crystal Palace, totally. However, the other side of it to me, it's UEFA love to make examples of easy targets. The only team ever suspended from the Champions League, Red Star Belgrade, when they were on the bones of their arse and they could have done with the money. Why? Because they'd won the competition once. And so it was a feather in UEFA's cap to say, we have banned former holders of the competition for financial irregularities. The financial irregularities got worse because they got banned from the competition and they were on the bones of their arse and they needed the bloody money. But they don't half love an easy target. A difficult target, that's a different matter. The other thing that it sort of reveals is the final weakness of the Delaware situation at Crystal Palace. One of their other owners could still be President Xi or Pol Pot. It could be anyone, and frankly, nobody would know. And funnily enough, over that, UEFA don't care. I can see why the Forest owner was pretty pissed about it, because what he was forced to do in terms of moving ownership and things around the Forest and Olympiacos.
Yeah.
And so, you can see there's multiple sides to it, but a lot of it's muddied in grey areas, because, again, you can see plenty of examples of group-type ownership where clubs are playing in the same competition without any problem. And so it's all a little bit of a farce, as always. The people you've got to feel for, I guess, are the Palace fans amongst all of it, because they don't have any control over anything like that. However, Palace as a club have been not terribly helpful to us and not terribly nice, to use a Trumpism, to us. And therefore, I am at the thin end of the wedge of sympathy, really, for it. But that aside, like I said, UEFA are neither consistent nor always fair in how they handle such things. And so it's all a little bit of much of a muchness, really.
Yeah, it certainly is. Steve, interesting post by Benny Boss. Chelsea and Villa take part in the financially lucrative Champions League despite breaching financial rules, subject to a financial penalty. Palace guilty of being small enough to be made an example of.
Exactly. It's a technicality as well. The Forest owner, he was very quick off the mark. He knew what he was doing when he handed over the responsibility before the apparent deadline that used to be June but got brought forward to April. Palace weren't aware that there was a deadline in April because they never thought it was going to affect them. And then all of a sudden they got into the cup final, they're playing Man City, and then all of a sudden they beat Man City. At which point the texter and the board decided we need to do something because we're going to find that we could be breaching a rule. So he's arranged to sell his shares. The shares apparently are sold. It's just pending a ratification and acceptance of Woody Johnson, I think, who owns a big American company, and I think he's from the Johnson & Johnson family. I doubt there'll be any problem with that in terms of fit and proper person. The guy used to be the US ambassador to the UK as well, so we can hardly say he's not fit and proper for the Premier League as far as the Premier League's concerned, when he was fit and proper to be an ambassador to the UK, a US ambassador to the UK. But they didn't jump when they should. He subsequently, like I say, he sold out, but the Premier League ignored it. I listened to an interview with him during the week where he said, this is Texter, he said he was a disruptor in France. And so his name's not the best in France. He also used his multi-club ownership model to move money around between clubs when it suited them, to help the cash flow. Something that's obviously been frowned upon in France. So I think that, again, the UEFA probably haven't got the handle on what he's actually been doing. He has Botafogo. He's got so that Lyon, and obviously his involvement in Palace. He did come out with some interesting things about Palace and about Steve Parish. He wasn't complimentary, but he wasn't uncomplimentary. But he did feel as though he'd been shafted somewhat by Palace because he thought he was buying 75% of them. He was told at first to just go in with the 45 that he took, and then he would get the rest later, and then the rest didn't materialize. So I think he's been naive in certain respects, and was probably naive when it came to the rules, and thinking that probably wouldn't affect them. If we're going to feel sorry for anybody, we're going to feel sorry for the Palace fans, because they were going to go on a European journey in the Europa League. Having said that, like Chelsea, they might be better off in the conference. They might go further than they would have in the UEFA, in the Europa League. Who knows? Only time will tell. I did see, and I don't know whether it's right or not, but I did see another little snippet that said the two incumbents from the Delaware company that Mitch has mentioned, actually also own a club in Denmark that are now playing in the Europa Conference League. So that could cause another possibility. And I think what will happen is it'll go to CAS, it'll go to some sort of tribunal, it'll carry on. And another little aside that you've got to bring into this equation, we're talking about Nottingham Forest. This morning, it was announced that Nottingham Forest were going to lose Morgan Gibbs-White to Tottenham Hotspur. By lunchtime, it was announced that Nottingham Forest were going to take Tottenham to court because they'd made an illegal approach to him. Tottenham think it's all right because there was a release clause in his contract. It now turns out, according to certain people in the media, that release clause doesn't count if Nottingham Forest are in the Europa League. So it's just turning into an absolute ball of, well, I don't know how, I kind of think of words that aren't expletive to actually describe this absolute farcical situation that seems to be just rolling along based on one judgment. One judgment is because technically somebody, apparently according to the Premier League, even though he doesn't own the shares in a football club, did own the shares at a football club at a particular time in the last season on a date that they then shifted and didn't tell anyone. And I think if I go back to the interview that Texter gave, what he said was that the email from UEFA just dropped into info@Crystal Palace Football Club inbox, and nobody bothered to read it. And it was something from UEFA telling them that this date has been moved back till the date is now April, and by the 20th of April or 29th of April, you must be aware that you've got to have declared then whether or not you've got involvement in the multi-club ownership and that you've done something to stop it. They weren't aware, or he wasn't aware, and it sounds like Parish wasn't aware. And I suppose that would put a smile on Mitch's face, just knowing that Parish is mucked up as well.
Couldn't have no nicer bloke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hilarious that, like. What do you reckon,
Me
George?
too. Well, I mean, the two lads have just set out what a bloody mess the administration and football's in, not just in the UK but in Europe. And it just begs the question: what the hell do these people do for a living? How do they get where they are? It's worse than when old Stanley Rouse used to be president of the FA, the ex-referee, and run the whole bloody thing himself. They're not even as competent as that, by the sound of it. And I must admit, I read the stuff that this guy's involved in France because of my friends in France. And French football's in absolute turmoil at the moment. And he's one of the people who's the reason, because he shifts money here, there, and everywhere, and without any permissions or telling anybody to do anything. So the net result is that the clubs in France basically don't know what they're dealing with. As regards it being Palace, so I agree with the lads. Steve Parish is such an arrogant man, and wants to play the game his way. And the way he treated us over the Geehee thing last year, putting everything we said into the press domain as soon as we could. Although, why should I be surprised at that? There are plenty at the Premier League that would say that nobody sneezes at a Premier League meeting without Parishes telling the press about it. So, it's just a shambles. But what the lads have just set out shows what an absolute mess administration in football's got itself into. And I've said about other things. The day not far away when somebody will take them on. Somebody will challenge some of these ideas. I mean, the guy at Nottingham Forest, who, some of my friends used to be directors of Olympiacos, but aren't because of him, because he wanted to be the boss, and some of my friends just backed out. Some of those people I call friends, actually, when Neil and Steve were setting up the trust, send donations to the trust. So, they know all about Newcastle United, but they just couldn't stand working with that man. So There's another one. What goes around comes around, and after his performance and dressing down his manager on the pitch after the game last season, do we really need some of these people in football? But it just shows what a shamble administration's in the game, and that's sad. I mean, it is sad for Palace fans. Let's be honest, but the way things are being run at the moment, it's sad for all because they're just making the rules up as they go along, and people are being picked off, as the lads have said, because Palace have got no clout. They wouldn't do it to one of the big so-called big six, or is it the big seven now? Whichever it is. But sooner or later, someone, and could be our lot, they'll get absolutely fed up and just take the whole thing to court and just put the wheels off one by one.
Okay, interesting stuff from the chaps, as always. And as always on a Friday, we've got plenty to get through. So I think we should lighten the mood with Tweet of the Week. Don't forget, this is the part of the show that if you are easily offended, it's probably best if you go outside for 5 minutes and avoid the screen. I see Steve's already done that. So we'll start off with a few signs. Here's a wonderful sign down in Essex. Brentwood, Kelvedon Hatch, Industrial Estate, and Secret Nuclear Bunker. Isn't the fact that they've got it on a sign mean that it's not secret anymore? This one, I did like this.
And the fact that the sign's brown means you know it's exactly 10 miles away, because that's what the brown means.
When the doctor says you need to watch your drinking, very good, very good. He's looking in the mirror, of course, for those of you who didn't get that. And a lookalike from Albert. Nice to see Anthony Gordon at Wimbledon with David Beckham today. Anyway, back onto the signs. Please satanize your hands here. The devil's work. It makes idle hands to do. No drinks back here unless they have a screw on top. Thanks, management.
Oh,
very good. And fisting rooms at a well-known department store, or a new addition, clearly. No soliciting. We are too broke to buy anything. We know who we are voting for. We have found Jesus. Seriously, unless you are giving away beer, please go away. That was a sign on somebody's gate this week. A lot of time and effort went into that. And always be careful what you buy in supermarkets, lads. Dill pickles aren't what they seem sometimes.
Oh, Jesus.
And pedestrian crossing ahead.
No.
And Glue Hill, please stick to the pavement. Someone's put underneath.
Oh, wow.
Couple of replies to tweets. Not how I expected him to come back, but okay, says Daniel. Message from Christ. I have arrived. Arriving soon. Christ is arriving soon in a Hyundai Elantra. Of course, that's the Uber driver who is called Christ. Very good. And Sandra, I've accidentally sent my mum a picture of my boobs, so I followed up with a medical question and booked a mammogram. RJ replies, I tried that excuse from your dad and a picture of my penis, but he asked why I was hard and I had a butt plug in. Booked some extra therapy sessions. And Angry Robot, Count Dracula was 412 when he moved to England in search of new blood. Sauron was 54,000 years old when he forged the One Ring. Cthulhu had seen galaxies flare into life and fade to darkness before he put madness in the minds of men. It's never too late to follow your dreams, lad. And how can you eat these precious creatures, says Tally. And Ted replies, is this rhetorical or are you looking for recipes? And it's time for one of those Facebook names again. And it's perfect for today's weather because it's absolutely roasting.
Roasting. Oh, gosh.
And we do like a sing song in here. I've just been helping Cat Stevens fix his caravan. His awning has broken.
Jesus.
And why is that chicken headed towards the gym? I bet he's going to work on his pecs. It's Captain Picard.
Oh, dear me.
And another young actor's life destroyed by years of partying. And only Star Wars fans will see it, lads.
Oh,
Wow.
One of these celebrity mashups, here's Aldi Warhol. And the answer to this was luck be in the air tonight. Well, I definitely guessed that answer horribly wrong, says the person commenting. Sprayed my car with rust remover this week. And I can't wait to sit outside at night. 350 mosquitoes liked your post. A few jokes. It's a 5-minute walk from my house to the pub. It's a 35-minute walk from the pub to my house. The difference is staggering. And next time you're in a fight with your wife, start undressing. She'll instantly have a headache and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I was walking past my fridge last night and I thought I heard Two Onions singing a Bee Gees song. But when I opened the door, it was just the chives talking.
Oh, dear me.
A couple of cartoons. Johnny, what happened to your eye? I got punched by cabbage salad. You fought the slow and the slow one. You fought the slow and the slow one. And hey, can I get your opinion on this shirt? Sure. Thanks. What was on the shirt, lads. Anyway, and drivers save money by putting much larger wheels on the back of your car. That way, you'll always be going downhill, thereby saving on fuel.
All right. Idea. God, that's great.
And I thought it was a great idea to buy 5,000 bone-shaped paper clips for our veterinary clinic. Worst idea ever. And this one, the winner of the 2024 Wingman of the Year award is this guy. Great stuff. Okay, that is the end of Tweet of the Week. If you've got any more, we're nearly ready for you to send them in, Jimmy. Send them over onto Facebook, but we will feature some more next week. Okay, John Mitchelson gets us onto the laws of the game. Do the lads agree that there should be a law about taking the ball down to the corner flag and wasting time, even when a side is 2, 3 or 4 up, just to waste time? It frustrates fans and players. George?
No, but I'd like to see referees learn what is protecting the ball and what is obstruction. Because too many times I see people who the commentators and the pundits in the box are saying, oh, he's protecting the ball. He's not bloody protecting the ball. He's obstructing the player getting to the ball. So if the player's not addressing the ball, the one that's protecting the ball is not addressing the ball, he's obstructing. So that's a breach of the rules anyway. But I wouldn't want to see rules like that brought in to start picking at minute things. How many times in a game does that happen? If that was seriously causing a huge hiatus in football and wasting minutes and minutes and minutes, well, yeah, maybe. But no, I'd rather the referees concentrate on learning the rules about obstruction, so that when they do that sort of thing, it's done legally and not using your body to just stop the other player and getting to the ball. So that's the way I would look at it. But I wouldn't want to see a special rule for something like that.
Steve?
That's another bruise, by the way, the obstructing the player from getting the ball that I put up with. You know, I think what John's getting at is what we used to refer as doing a shearer. You know, a couple of minutes to go and Shearer would head down the corner flag and you know, play the ball off somebody's shins, usually Roy Keane's, getting annoyed. Shearer was a master at it. He could use his backside to stop anybody getting anywhere near the ball, couldn't he? He was tremendous at it, and he did it so frequently. It's one of those facets of the game that annoy you when it's happening against you, and that you love when it's your players doing. And I think that's probably the gist of the angst from Paul was probably when it's going against us, we don't like it. But I agree with George. I hate that sort of, you know, getting between the opposition and the opponent and the ball, and then trying to not just shield the ball out, but actually pushing the other player, the opponent, out of the way. Got no intention of playing the ball. If the ball's at your feet, fine. But it was the likes of, it was Rio Ferdinand who used to do it, and John Terry, and they would be miles away from the ball, and you're thinking, well, you've got no intention of making a move for the ball, but you're blocking the opponent off. If the ball's at your feet and you're letting it go, and you're guiding it out and you're protecting it, fine. But this business where there's 5, 6, 7 yards, and the other one is the Man City fullback Kyle Walker, now gone to Burnley. He was another one who did it frequently, and it used to really, really annoy me when I saw it happening. But again, I suppose weren't too bothered when it was Lascelles doing it or somebody like that. But it's there's little facets of the game that annoy you. Goalkeepers going down on the ball and holding it. Goalkeepers catching the ball in the air and then landing flat and lying on the ball. I think this is something that technically the Premier League are going to stamp out the next season with this 8-second rule. But how long will it last? Usually find it lasts throughout August and the first couple of weeks of September, and then it gets forgotten about. And I think this is the inconsistency that we get. It'll be something that comes out from the PGMOL. We'll hear all about it. There'll be a big thing about it on the first game of the season, and then, like I say, by September it'll be forgotten about. Happens every year.
Okay, Neil?
Ultimately, this is what happens when you allow certain basics to go to hell in a handcart. And so therefore some of the things which are seen as fundamentals, or used to be, become grey areas because things aren't applied evenly across the board. So understanding the difference between obstruction and being able to shepherd a ball, I think Steve's quite right. It's great when we can do it, but not so great when you're having it done to you. And I don't think that's something that should therefore be taken out of the game per se. But how it's handled by referees is probably what needs to improve, along with basically general standards of refereeing and understanding the fundamentals of the game. I think that's part of that problem more than anything else.
Okay, lots of things coming in the chat as well. We've got quite a few people have asked questions as well. Kevin, a few others have asked about this again. PIF given another one of our rivals 300 million to sponsor their stadium. Do they think we are dropping down in the pecking order by the day? Lee says, just tuned in, not sure if it's been mentioned. How do the Amigos feel about the potential Saudi PIF stadium sponsor for Spurs? I've got to be honest, I've not seen anything about this, lads. Anybody who has seen it, because it's a new one on me.
Yeah, I've seen it. It was something that was leaked out. I think it was Ben Jacobs, actually.
Yeah, Nick's just said Ben Jacobs reported it.
He said it's possibly a subsidiary. It originally started off as saying it was a Middle Eastern company, because there's been a question mark about where Spurs are getting the money from for all these signings, because obviously historically they're not a club that spent vast amounts of money, but bidding for a whole raft of players that seem to come to 150 million altogether. So there was a discussion about that first. Was it Middle Eastern money? People were having a pop. I think the owner came out, and there was one or two of his friendly reporters said that it was ENIC who were going to put money in. It wasn't come from the Middle East. And then it was stadium sponsor was mentioned. And I haven't seen 300 million mentioned. I've seen 30 million pound, and I've heard various people saying various lengths of time. Whether it is a PIF company, a PIF subsidiary, or like Mitch said on the show last night, and on the professionals earlier in the week, there are many Saudi rich people who want to get involved in football and not necessarily PIF. The only thing I could say to sort of temper the discussion at the moment was, you know what? If this is a benchmark on how much it costs to sponsor a stadium, then fine. I'm happy with that. If it's 30 million for Tottenham a year, then I think we can guarantee that we can get at least 30 million for our stadium. and think what it'll be when our new stadium appears, and it's brand new, by which time Spurs Stadium will be, 10 years old. And I'm not saying it'll be falling to bits by then, but it'll be old compared to the modern stadium that Newcastle United have. So it's just one of those things. Let's see how the Premier League take it if we do come in. I mean, it's quite interesting because we get carried away, don't we, on all of this? But all of a sudden, I noticed people coming up with all sorts of statements saying that our Adidas, there's supposed to be 3 deals sitting there with the Premier League. How anyone knows that, I don't know. I've seen statements that said our Adidas deal was going to be 30 million and it got chipped to 25 for the Premier League. Don't know where that came from. Can't recall any responsible journalist coming out with that sort of information. But there again, I've been sitting in the sun for 2 hours today, so maybe my mind's frazzled and I can't remember. I don't think it is mind. But there's all sorts of things that get thrown around on social media, and whether it's fact or fiction, we'll never ever get to the bottom of. But if it's a benchmark, then I'm happy with it.
Mitch?
Ben playing both sides of the argument once again and being very clever. I do sometimes wonder who his real paymasters are on occasion. Obviously, people don't realise that I've known Ben a lot longer than a lot of people realise from his time here in Dubai as well. I think he forgets that sometimes too. But never mind. If you read the actual words, deal makers have put forward 2 companies. One is a PIF subsidiary and the other not affiliated to PIF at all. And they're also talking to American companies. So nothing's decided. Nothing. You're all falling for it, lads and lasses.
Yeah.
The desperation for something to go wrong. Our desperation as a fan base that we're becoming so needy that I'm seeing people whinging that there's no longer video announcing he's signing yet and it's terrible. What are they doing? And they're dragging their heels and does that mean the deal's off? Get a grip. Get yourselves a cup of tea or something. Have a temazepam if it helps. Really, you're falling for it. This is all the bullshit we had during the takeover that was linked to geopolitics. And it's more of the same. From the same people. Do you not see the game? We're still playing it. It never, ever will go away. The game PIF are playing on the part of Saudi is that they want to have ins at as many different levels of football as possible. Hence why the sponsorship of the Club World Cup. And all these different entities have no relation to Newcastle United in the grand scheme of things. So what they do is not related. They are not obliged to help us. They're just not. Because they're reporting on different things, different levels. And the kind of money we're talking about here is still pocket change for a company that makes something like 250 million a day on that oil reserves alone. So get a grip, keep it hard, don't let them wind you up because they're winning. They're still winning.
Yeah.
They're still finding the button to say, let's get under them stupid gits in the northeast skin and let's spoil their day. Because they know we're coming.
There is an electric,
no matter how many barriers get chucked in the way, no matter how many obstacles, if they were going to give up, they'd have given up by now. They wouldn't have still been there after the first time everything broke down. And we were still telling you, we know they're still there, but plenty of you out there didn't want to believe that. You wanted to believe that everything had gone to shit and that everything was a disaster. And we're still falling for all this. We're still falling for being taken down the garden path by certain entities, certain individuals, client journalists. Kavi Solokol going on to Sky now, basically being a cheerleader for the Club World Cup. Yeah. He's exposed himself this summer for exactly what he is. And people will slowly and surely, over time, expose themselves in every single way possible that they can. And in the meantime, it's very likelihood we will spiral inwards and start fighting with ourselves again, because that's just starts clawing at the wounds that have been there for years, and that we need to get over, and we all need to be positive about things. We've just had the most successful season in living memory for most people who follow Newcastle United. And you want to not even take time to revel in that. You want to tell everybody where it's going wrong and how shit everything is. Well, if this is shit, shovel me some more of it.
There is an Elanga video, by the way. It's being
I
played.
didn't care, Steve. He signed. Move on.
It's being played on the
club. I'm going to get an Oscar for it. Or Burnley's videos, which have been great, by the way. They're fantastic. Their player announcement videos, their social media teams pulled a blind out with them, and they're brilliant. But is the Premier League going to give them 6 extra points for it? Oh, fuck.
It's being played on the club's Wi-Fi in the stadium. That's why we can't get access to it.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, you know where I'm going to go on after Neil, because I've been saying since Carabao Cup, I'm enjoying it, and I'm still enjoying it. Don't you go back and look at the bloody goals at Wembley and suck them up again and get ready for your season that way. And as regards every little mention of Piff, there's something going to happen if you believe what these people print. And the notion that somebody says, "Are we falling down the pecking order?" What bloody pecking order? They could buy the bloody world, and we're at the top of that concern. We've got our chairman, their chairman, saying he wants Newcastle United as number one. Well, my experience of working with people from Saudi is they don't say that sort of thing unless they mean it. They don't even whisper it unless they mean it. So, falling down the pecking order, for God's sake. I've got a personal thing at the moment, and the lads know I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody's getting their knickers in a twist about no stadium announcements. Is it the council? Is it the university? Is it this? Is it that? I'm telling you now, the people who are doing the stadium thing, it'll be the people in Saudi Arabia, because they want the bloody best. They want the best. And if best means bigger, forget your 75,000, lads. It'll be bigger, because they want the best. And they want the best for Newcastle United. God, it's 70-odd years I've been saying that. Want the best for Newcastle United. And at last, we can actually see it. I can nearly taste it. I'm so positive about it. So, as Neil says, enjoy the moment, man, and just get ready for next year, because I think there's more coming. And this greedy little duck will enjoy every moment of it, along with everybody else.
Okay, I don't think Neil will be endorsing giving away free to Mazapan on NUFC Matters. If you want to contact Neil about legal drugs,
no, can't say Craig Hope and ask him if he's got any gear.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll have a quick ad break back up. Go on.
I was just going to say, did I see somebody, just to lighten the mood a bit, talking about Bruno's Magpies from Gibraltar on the chat at some stage?
Yes.
Stick it into YouTube. Bruno's Magpies, Copenhagen. A guy that does a YouTube channel, American lad, Zealand or something, did a documentary on it, and it's really worth watching. And it's got nothing to do with Bruno Guimaraes, by the way. It's just purely a coincidence. But there is a Newcastle connection.
Okay, Steve Middlemas, rewind the show. We've already talked about Spurs not getting Saudi sponsorship.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk.
And don't forget, we are having a cup final screening, relive the history-making moment of 2025 with your friends from NUFC Matters. 100 tickets available, 40 sold, 60 left. And I say sold. All you've got to do is register. It's free. It's a free event. Come along. And you have got a chance of winning a replica cup final medal just by sending your email to us. It's as simple as that. No money required. There'll be raffles on the day, but please get yourself along. And Ian, Toon Trader, was asking when the next event is. That's it, mate. It's a free event. Come along and watch the cup final, and you've got 1 in 100 chance of winning that particular medal. Don't forget as well, the fanzines should all have more or less landed on the doorsteps now. We do need subscriptions for next season for the 4 issues. Only 44 have sold for next year. Not sure whether that's the price increase that's putting people off, or people are a little bit economical with their cash these days. But we do need to be able to secure at least 100 to get this on the road for next season. So if you are going to subscribe, or you're thinking about subscribing, please subscribe ASAP. We do want to raise as much money for the charity as possible. Okay, lots of other topics to discuss. We're going to be on the air for at least another 35-40 minutes. Craig Lee says, now that the Morgan Gibbs White move to Spurs is off, could Newcastle move in? He's been linked before. Maybe Morgan Gibbs White and Dominic Calvert-Lewin could be the solution to missing out on Pedro. It gives us a 10 and a striker. It's an interesting one, George. I mean, Morgan Gibbs White has been on Newcastle's radar, certainly with regards to press speculation. Whether he's ever been on Newcastle's radar as far as genuinely being interested in buying him is concerned, I'm not sure. But, now that Elanga's a Newcastle player, is Morgan Gibbs White somebody you would like to see at the club as well, George?
He's a complex character for me. I worry about some of the off-field things about him and attitude to England and all that kind of thing, and makes us think, is he really a Newcastle player? That's my only concern. He's a brilliant player, incidentally. There's no question about that. But I just have second thoughts about the extras that go with him. He would be a useful addition, and certainly would make our midfield unplayable in many ways. But I would worry what baggage he brings with him is the only thing for me. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I said the other night, even if he's free, why get rid of a striker who only Harry Kane could beat for scoring goals for minutes on the pitch because he's injury prone, and bring in another striker who's injury prone and has hardly scored a bloody goal the last 5 years. It sounds good, but I don't see the equation. I don't see the excitement in goals from Calvert-Lewin that we've had before. So he's another one who I won't be disappointed if he passes us by, even for free, to be honest.
Strange one. Morgan Gibbs-White, I think, is an exciting player. I agree with Denise. I think under Eddie Howe would be a good possibility. And I've got to be honest, if we are going into the season with another striker, for me, it will be somebody who is happy to sit on the bench and wait for their opportunity. And you're not going to find many out there. So I'll stick my neck out and still say Dominic Calvert-Lewin would be a decent enough addition to the squad, especially with these other players around him. I'd bring Chris Wood back for a season or two.
Well, I'd rather have him than Calvert-Lewin.
Chris Wood would give us a different dimension, and people will probably go, Chris Wood, what on earth are you talking about? The guy's just scored 20 plus goals in a season with Alanga creating a hell of a lot of them. And if things are going to go belly up at Forest and in the way that they seem to be going, maybe it's not a bad shout. But look, there is opportunities. Ekitike has been linked. Of course, everyone's an expert on what Ekitike's personal relationships have been with and what he behaves like. Nobody knows really who caused all that fuss last time round. Ekitike is a young, hungry striker. I think he'd be ideal to come and be part of Newcastle. But let's just see. Let's see what happens. Barry wouldn't touch Ekitike, but that's what I mean, Barry. You don't know exactly what went wrong there and why it didn't come. PSG didn't work out too good for him, did it at all? But we do need somebody. We do need somebody, and I think Newcastle will sign one of those names that's been mentioned. Steve, Morgan Gibbs-White
brings a totally different dimension to your midfield, doesn't he? And your attacking possibilities. Scores goals, can control a game from a number 10 position, something that we haven't had. We're going to go into a 65-game season. We're not going to have the situation where Bruno's going to play every game, Tonali going to play every game, Joe Linton playing every game. There's going to have to be alternatives. There's going to have to be alternatives in style of play as well as the formation and the personnel. So why not have a player of Morgan Gibbs-White's natural ability and goal scoring prowess and leadership as well to fall back on? There are other players at Nottingham Forest because Forest seem to be quite happy to delve around and make moves in the transfer market, be it snapping up players or letting players go. I like the look of Milenkovic, the centre half. I think he had a fantastic season, and I think if you were looking for a dominating centre half, despite all the names that have been mentioned from abroad, I think there's a player who's proved himself in the Premier League. Now, in terms of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think again I think the difference between Calvert-Lewin and Callum Wilson, one is the 4-year age gap. The second one is that Callum didn't want to stay. The offer was given to him, and he decided he didn't want to take up the offer. The offer that he was getting was probably very similar to the offer that Dominic Calvert-Lewin was going to get if he wanted to stay at Everton, and that was a pay-as-you-play based on the fact that he's had various injury problems. Calvert-Lewin, 200. I think he's played 200 odd Premier League games. At one point he was a 20 goal a season player. Has struggled first with injuries and then struggled to get into the team as alternatives came for Everton. People have this thing about his off-field antics and his fashion faux pas and such like, but that's just the making of a young footballer 3 or 4 seasons ago. And that's what they do. He seems like a grounded lad now, and I think that he would probably, of all the players that we mentioned, would fit into the Eddie Howe mold more than anyone. And you're right in terms of someone who was understanding he was coming as second fiddle to a player who finished, right at the top of his game last season, but again has an injury issue with a groin problem that seems to reoccur and another player who's not going to play 65 games a season. So we need alternatives. Is it a gamble that you're getting them for free? No, it's not a gamble at all. Is it a gamble that he could be injured? Well, Alexander Isak could be out for the season with a problem. Who knows? That's the nature of being a professional footballer and playing a physical league like the Premier League. You pick up injuries. Some of them are niggly injuries. Some of them are long-lasting injuries. Some of them are career-ending injuries. If you concentrate on just the players and just focused in on a player's injury record, you probably wouldn't have signed Alan Shearer. You probably, you wouldn't have signed Peter Beardsley back, or you wouldn't have signed Michael Owen. Yes, we did sign Michael Owen, but he carried on and managed to get another 2 years out of Man United. This is the nature of football. Some players can handle it. Some players will struggle with it. When we lap it up, don't we? As Mitch has already said, it's the nature of social media. It's the nature of conversation, and it's all about opinions at the end of the day. But the getting back to the main man, which was Gibbs White. He is a class act. There's no question about that, and I think he would be a great addition to Newcastle United and give us some fantastic options.
Okay, Mitch, Morgan Gibbs White.
Before I get to that, I've got to share some intrusive thoughts with you.
All right.
Which are going to stir the pot up a little bit more. Spurs naming rights. How would the fan base react if we suddenly discovered Amanda was behind the company brokering the deals?
Which you probably will be.
Well, my intrusive thoughts win on occasion, and I'm struggling to keep all my intrusive thoughts back.
Yeah.
Anyway, Morgan Gibbs White linked up beautifully with Gordon in the under-21s a couple of years ago, and come out of that tournament with as much praise as Gordon did, and they seem to get on well together. He has a bit of the devilment and the shithousery in him that I like. And so does Calvert-Lewin on his day. And I think the comment at the beginning that says bring them both together, and that fills a glaring gap in terms of positionally in our squad, and it would do amazingly. I could see him fitting into the system because he's versatile enough, and I think Calvert-Lewin could play in a couple of roles as well. So I think I wouldn't be averse to it, because I'm always happier when they're our shithouse and not somebody else's shithouse. That always seems to make it feel a little bit better.
Okay, lots of comments coming in. A lot of people seem to be quite positive about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which is a bit of a change from 2 or 3 weeks ago. And other people confident about, potentially bringing in Will Asula, saying that he may well be positively, in a better.
Why did he get some cotton wool out from between his ears?
And you know what it is, though, with Steve, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he adds a dimension that that we haven't utilised recently, and maybe with a set piece coach, which we might start to. He's very good in the air, a striker that's good in the air. We haven't had a striker who can lay the ball off with his head, probably since Chris Wood, and before that we could go back to Andy Carroll. He's very, very good in the air. He's good hold up play. He's intelligent footballer, and I think that in the past it's an area that we've lacked. We've tended to play a lot more on the ground, and you do need all of these options going. So yeah, but it's fascinating, isn't it? Again, opinions.
Of course it is.
Well,
yeah.
But I'll just add that while I'm, iffy about both, if Eddie Howe says to me he wants those players, deal done. That's the biggie for me. If Eddie Howe's persuaded those players could do something for Newcastle United, nobody will cheer harder than George.
Okay, going to have a quick break, and time to have a day. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. And it's thanks to Kevin, who says, this is me boy with Steve Harper at the Pav Day a few years ago at Dunstan. Thank you, Kevin. If you've got a photograph, send it in to us by email, nufcmatters8092@gmail.com, and we'll feature you on the show.
Tell you what, it's good that we're going for the likes of Morgan Gibbs-White and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because under Ashley, we probably couldn't even have bought them and Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen. So,
Roger says, my DCL fear is that due to our very testing training routines and his shaky fitness record, would he be able to do it without injury? Benny says, DCL is awesome in the air. He does run the channels. He also said he's looking to sign for a club at the top end of the Premier League. So watch him go and sign for West Ham, because they offered him 30 grand a week more. Good news, Craig's out with a dog again. It's the fittest dog in the Northeast. Denise says, what's the lads' thoughts on if you don't attend a certain amount of games, your season ticket could be challenged, yet the games can be changed regularly, making it harder to plan. I think we discussed this the other week, Denise, and I'm not sure whether you were in the chat or not, but we did discuss the change in terms and conditions. And I think you've just got to keep an eye on the terms and conditions and how they change. But my understanding is you can transfer the ticket or you can sell it back to the club. And it's no different to what it was last season as far as not attending games is concerned. There can be a review, but if you've got circumstances which affect you, i.e. looking after a family member, being able to travel because you don't live in the area, they will take it into consideration. I think every single circumstance will be looked at. So I don't want to go down the avenue of tickets, but I just wanted to give you an answer to that. And Barry says, what do you guys think about the club offering access on NUFC TV to all pre-season games for £29? Is this the club testing the water for their own TV channel, George?
Well, if it is, I mean, I said it the other night, is the important thing for me is access, is providing the opportunity for people to see their team and as often as they can. So I've got no problem with that. And when you look at what other sports channels and other channels are charging for football, it doesn't seem to me to be a too bad a price. In fact, I think if you remember, it's cheaper, isn't it? Is it? I think you get a better deal if you remember. So, accessibility for people to see their team, I would applaud every time. I do want to see people ripped off, but on the other hand, it's given people the opportunity to watch their team, and it isn't a huge amount of money, but it keeps the wheels turning, keeps the coffers going. It's not a lot of money, but the important thing for me is it gives people access who probably wouldn't have access at all. I mean, I could link this to Denise's question before. The question I'd be asking Denise is, how long is it we're going to have season tickets? This is the question I'm interested in. That's the one that gets me. So
I don't want to get bogged down.
We might all be happy to buy access to NUFC TV to see what team is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Steve, avoid the tickets question. We're moved on from that swiftly because I don't want to get bogged down in that. We will get bogged down in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the TV side of things. Yeah.
I don't think it is TV, such as in them testing the water. I think that the Premier League know what their plans are. I think they have looking down the next 4 or 5 years. I think you look at the TV deals have already struck. You look at the overseas deals that are bringing the money in. Anyone who follows football finance will know that the current deal for the TV is actually worse than the deal they had. Yet they wrapped it up in a fantastic bundle. That they said it was superb. I think the big issue is that it's on one channel, almost, and one channel only, and I think you have to question the amount of money that you have to pay to watch games all around. I think the Premier League itself may well look at their own platform in the future. Mitch talked about it on the show earlier in the week, the way that the American NFL have gone with their own TV deals, the options that they give on the red zone, etc., etc. I think that ultimately, with more and more American owners, they'll be looking more and more to wanting to introduce their own, where you're basically responsible for the platform. I did read, however, that the amount of money that you need to invest to do that would be colossal. It would be a huge gamble by the Premier League to actually put the infrastructure in place. There is the added problem that at the moment everything's done collectively, so everybody gets an even share of the pot, and then after that it's prize money and it's appearances. Soon as you start to go down the line of clubs running their own, you suddenly end up with the Manchester Uniteds, the Liverpools, and such like, who have the huge following, or they'll tell you they have the huge following overseas, will just be dragging more and more money into them, and that will be to the detriment of those at the bottom end of the league who don't have that huge international following. And I think that's when the balance starts to really turn, and you start looking and you think, you know what, I can understand why they want to do it, but you have to look at football in the round. You have to look at the league in the round. You have to look at what's best for the league. And unless it was going to be a collective sharing the money in the same way as they do, I'd be very much against it. Even if I was one of the top clubs, even if Newcastle United were up there with more international money and more international fans than any other, and we were bringing in the most money, I still would feel that for the benefit of the game, it wasn't a good idea. So, but I don't think Newcastle doing this is a testing of the water. What I would say, however, I think it's going to be 7 games, 29 quid. That's what, £4.15, £4.18, something like that. But what I would say is that, one, let's hope the connection's better than it was the last time they did it. And two, let's hope the commentary was better than the last time they did it as well.
1,400 people watching live tonight. 1,000 of you on Twitter. Please jump over onto YouTube. Search NUFC Matters. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. We do 7 shows a week. So search NUFC Matters on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Yeah, Mitch, we spoke about it a little bit on the show the other night. But yeah, Barry's just saying, do you think it's a step towards clubs doing that in the future?
I think we patently have to have a slicker, better, more in-depth media department to make nice announcement videos to keep people happy, if nothing else. But I think every club is heading down that way, and some are further down than others. You know, Man U, Rangers have had their own TV channels, but Leeds have got their own. You know, they're ahead in that respect. Burnley, why they've been able to do what they've done, because they're ahead in that respect. And it's interesting that a lot of the Championship clubs got ahead with that because of the way the Championship divide their rights out, and they can each broadcast their own games on their own channels when you're in the Championship. And so I think it's reflective more of that really than anything else. And it lasts something for those of us overseas who have memberships to say, well, what do I get for the membership? Well, there's something that you're getting a discount on that almost covers the cost of the membership. If you take the package up, and certainly it'll be taken. So there's lots of reasons why it's being done, and like many departments in Newcastle United, it's from where it should be, from where it is, it's a long way off. And that's mainly because of the way Ashley left everything. Filling all those positions and all those holes overnight was never going to happen. And that's partly the frustrations that we have.
Soapy says, I like the fact that you've got a choice to pay it and watch the pre-season. There was a time that you couldn't at all. Mark says that really from his perspective, he still finds it bonkers that he's living in America and he can see every club's game on Peacock for $8 a month, yet the country the league is from can't, which is another.
Yeah, and add to that, you know, the pittance of a subscription to be in sports over here in relative terms, you know, and I never miss a kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, George.
Just agreeing with Sophie's point, as I said at the beginning, the important thing for me is giving people access to Newcastle United, and if that's what it does, bring it on. Let's have more.
Benny made a point about the Elanga situation. He says maybe the delay in the Elanga videos because the club have learned a lesson from the third kit release. 4 teams of lawyers are currently reviewing the Elanga video as we speak, which, is a good point, well made. We'll finish with Barry's question. He says, just a thought, would it be good if PIF bought a share in maybe a Brazilian and Argentinian club and then link this with the players from those clubs? Is that something we could do? I mean, yeah, we could tie in with clubs, couldn't we, Mitch?
It's something that's actively being looked at and explored, multi-club ownerships of various kinds. And I know fine well that again, when Amanda and Medad were still in the club, they spoke to various multi-club owners of various types, including the infamous 777 partners, for example. Yeah. And so, if nothing else, I would hope that they've learned how not to do it and how it can be done. Multi-club ownership is still something that's a little on the controversial side just because of the conflicts that it brings that we started talking about at the start of the show. And that won't change. Having a vested interest in say, in Brazil, in Argentina, certainly in South America, because of the South American connections we have already, would make sense. But then you've got to work out how strategically that works on a global scale within the plan of the group. And it's quite clear within City Group, the jewel in the crown is Man City, and everything else will come second to that, including another club in the Champions League in Girona. So, but that's where then UEFA want to get involved because they want to get away from people being able to influence potentially results in their own competitions, which you've got to understand. I think that from a sport and integrity point of view, that's very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important. You could almost suggest, though, in terms of how things have gone on for years, you can't tell me that certain transfers between certain clubs for certain players was all just about making the money go around. You can't tell me David Luiz, the Brazilian centre-back, was worth all the money in the transfers that he had between the clubs he went from and to. The guy was a clown, and yet seems to have been sold for a combined sum of millions, and always when a club needed a little bit of help. So you cannot tell me there's not been gentlemen's agreements done for years in that respect. And a little bit of multi-club ownership isn't going to change that much.
Okay, Steve?
This was something that Amanda talked about just before she left when she attended one of the, I think it might have been Soccer X or one of the other.
It was one of them, yeah.
Yeah. And she talked about it was definitely a direction that Newcastle United would go, looking to invest in South American football, Brazilian football in particular, also looking at the Belgian league. I think that if Crystal Palace has shown you anything, or the Crystal Palace debacle has shown you anything, if you're going to go into multi-club ownership model, do it in leagues that aren't going to impact your own host club, your first club, your number one club. So I would say going into South America, going into Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, or wherever it happens to be, or whether it's Central America or even the USA itself, be far better than going into Europe. unless the clubs that you're going to be looking at in Europe are going to be what can only be described as minnows, small clubs that are there just to help you to develop, like as a development team, a development club that you can maybe use exchange players with, or give experience to some of your under 21s, under 18s, or whatever it happens to be. Having said that, it's a lot more difficult to do that now, and following Brexit, than it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. Probably easier to do those sort of swaps with South American clubs, actually. The Indian League's an interesting one as well. There's a huge market that doesn't really seem to get exploited at the moment, and I'm using that word loosely in terms of exploit. What I mean by that is a league that seems to get forgotten about. How can you forget about football in a country with over 1 billion people? And football is very, very popular over there. Yes, cricket is the most popular, but there are options there that Newcastle United or PIF in particular could look at, especially when they have a lot of industrial holdings over there, a lot of business in the petrochemical industry that they're involved in that neck of the woods. Yeah, I mean, I think Santos was the club that we were linked with. Actually, ironically, the club that Neymar ended up going to, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
And did they wear black and white? I don't know.
Yeah, they do. One of their shirts is black and white. Yeah,
Botafogo, don't they, as well? But yeah, it's I mean, it's not a bad thing to look at. It's just you've got to be. I think now you've got to be that little bit more aware of what the implications are when you're diving in, and you might think, oh, well, that'll not affect us. But I think that's what's burnt Palace to a certain degree. They didn't think it would affect them with the involvement with Lyon. Isn't Manchester United's owner trying to sell his club in France at the moment, and has been for a long time? But did they play in the same league at one point? I think they did. Played in the same competition. Fascinating, isn't it? But let's see. Let's concentrate on our homegrown entities at the moment, and let's leave the expansion into South America to Al Ramayan and those who know better.
George, I mean, I've said on here before, I would like to see Newcastle link up more with Red Youth Boys and Wallsend Boys and all of these other boys clubs. But, you know, I get where Barry's coming from with his question.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it local, why not Gateshead? You know, that's where I would be starting, you know, and then going down to the boys clubs as well, to give it that local impetus, which we are missing at the moment. And I couldn't see why, for example, if we're putting young players out to loan, that couldn't we boost Gateshead by loaning players to Gateshead to get them where they want to be, you know, and that seems perfectly sensible to me. On the global stage, I will be amazed if there's not somebody in PIP who's got a file on his desk that says multi-club functions, and that it's pointing them towards South America. You know, yes, Amanda and Maydad's not there, but they didn't take their files with them. You know, it'll still be there on somebody's desk. So, but I think that Steve and Neil are right. Do it in a league where it's not going to impact on your parent club, on the club that matters. But the local, your pointed to the local league, Steve, is the one that's been in my mind for a long time. That why on earth couldn't we help Gateshead and maybe some others as well? But Gateshead particularly is sort of the senior club, so that we get that local input, and then try and develop links with the top junior clubs, and maybe even some of the top school teams as well. Because that's an area that bothers me greatly. The way school football is almost disappeared in some schools.
Okay, we're going to finish off with a little bit of Elliot. hate people who bang on about their phobias. I've got a terrible fear of heights, but you won't find me shouting about it from the rooftops, says Elliot. Thank you, everybody, for tonight. Great show, great questions. We did avoid tickets as well. I do try to avoid that for at least a couple of months after we've spoken about it. Back tomorrow night, 5 o'clock with the professionals. Sunday will be three's a crowd because the Mackhams have been begging us. Keith's been begging us to get on and chat about Sunderland. Rye doesn't really want to do it, but he's going to. So we'll be back early morning on Sunday for that, and then back with the fans forum next Monday. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the sun. Make sure you got your sun cream on. Thanks to George, Steve, and Mitch. Take care, lads.
All the best.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.